From Bigfoot mapping project updates to the use of AI to correlate data, map, and maybe even predict encounters. This week, we're having a fireside chat with one of our favorite people, Scott Tompkins. So please, sit back, spark up a Sasquatch-sized spliff, or maybe grab some Baileys with a splash of hot cocoa, and enjoy. I didn't see you there. Something big is going on here.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot.
Paranormal, UFOs, true crime, and more.
We won't just be spouting articles.
I was researching for your entertainment. The beginning of a new world.
The best squawk you'll ever fucking eat.
True story.
It's basically like one day you walk outside and you see that the ants are playing with matches.
This is the
Black Cat
Report.
See you on the other side.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 74 of the Black Cat Report. My name is Gil, and I'm joined with here today by the ever-blurry Joey.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here at my parents' house in Virginia, actually. So have this weird makeshift mic that's just sitting on the table. So if I'm like leaning down, I'm actually getting close to the mic. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. If it falls over, just it's fine. No big deal.
You're just pre-gaming for Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
And as well as our blurry Joey, who's falling over, we have a very, very special guest, longtime friend of the show, the founder of the Bigfoot Mapping Project, Scott Tompkins. Scott, welcome back.
Howdy, y'all. Glad to be here. Coming in from Texas, Houston.
Coming in from
Okay.
Houston. Hell
Third time's the charm, they say.
It is. I can't believe it's the third time already.
I know, it's awesome.
This needs to be an
Hey, it's-
annual event.
I know, it's been almost a year, it feels like. So
I can't believe it goes that fast.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. but
Last time
That's what happens when you get old, right?
last time we saw each other, neither one of us really had beards, and then this time we get on, and it literally looks like it's been a year for both of us.
It does.
But, well, yeah, so before we dive in and we geek out, which is inevitable, would you mind telling some of our newer listeners maybe that like a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the project?
My pleasure, sure. So as Gil said, I'm the founder of the Bigfoot Mapping Project, but that is not the only thing I do. It's my passion project. A little bit about me. I'm from New York originally and grew up in upstate New York, about an hour north of New York City, and traveled the country doing oil and gas exploration after college. Have a degree in GIS from SUNY Cortland. And with all those adventures behind me, I had the idea to start the Bigfoot Mapping Project after meeting a lot of interesting people and hearing a lot of really captivating stories. So I thought I'd put everything in a database, and quarantine hit. Had time to learn how to build all this stuff, and here we are. Third interview, and gonna dig. It sounds like we're gonna dig deep this go around. You guys, I'm no longer just like a. You don't have to be so polite. I'm not. I'm a familiar now. I'm not just a guest, right? So I can't wait. The gloves are off, I guess. Huh?
Gloves are
Yes,
off.
yes.
I mean,
We
go ahead.
can yell at you this time,
We can
actually.
yell at you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can. I'm a little nervous,
Oh
but
my
I'm also
God.
excited, like morbidly excited.
That's how we go into every episode.
That's the sweet
morbidly
spot.
excited. I
That's
love
the
that.
sweet
Yes.
spot right
I think
there.
that's probably why we get along so well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk updates, right? So first time we had you on, I was super geeked out on the approach you've taken to Bigfoot, a broad open door policy to data collection with an eye on, combing through all the accounts and finding patterns, right? That's something that in my mind, like especially getting into to cryptids, or I guess a semi-derogatory term in some cases like folklore, or like anything in the paranormal, right? Anything you would find on the show, right? A lot of times it's just like these very large, massive, like publicized cases and events, or it's kind of that thing that grandma used to talk about, right? But there's not a lot of at least public like research going on to such a level, right? There might be people collecting stories and doing this and that, but not just like grabbing everything possible and like hashing through the data, finding those patterns and looking for these things. About to go off on a data rant already, but
Well, yeah, it's an over dramatized TV show that goes into crazy things where you're just like, cool. That's not at all how an experiencer would talk about this.
Well,
Yeah, there's entertainment value, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they have to stay on air.
that's true.
For sure.
That's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that, right? So it it has been a while since we last spoke. What have you been finding?
Ooh, you touched on a good one. So
Yeah.
just like you guys have had a lot of episodes since we last talked, I've made a lot of maps since we
Hell
talked
yeah.
last, and most of them have been focused on what's called least cost pathway data,
Okay.
green infrastructure data that Esri made, and I've really geeked out on this, and I think I made like almost 50 maps for all the states.
Damn.
And what I did was I took all of the least cost pathways that connect hubs, right? These hubs are conservation areas that have the highest value for hosting wildlife and ecological values. So it's like think of a state forest would be a hub, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where all the wildlife is going to congregate and live. And they need to get from one hub to another. So what do they have? They have corridors in between these hubs. And the infrastructure data shows you these corridors. And this is all third party data that's outside of the Bigfoot Mapping Project database. So what I did was I took all of the sightings inside the database and intersected it with these corridors and basically found the quote unquote Bigfoot byways. If you've seen the maps on Instagram that I dubbed them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's these all of the sightings that intersected these corridors. I pulled those specific corridors out and called them, the Bigfoot byways, and you can see all of the corridors that Bigfoot and other wildlife would travel. And to me, I think that's one of the biggest external validations and findings is that these sightings intersect actual areas where wildlife travels as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like these how many I think there was like I don't know 3,000 of them out of the 7,000 at the time that intersected actual corridors.
Mm.
That's a huge ratio. And if it was just a phenomenon where people were hoaxing and just putting points on the map and making things up, there's no way that they don't know where these corridors are. And the fact that these points intersect these corridors, it's huge to me, I think, because it shows that they're commonly seeing Bigfoot where other wildlife travels, and it makes sense that they're there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it necessarily a pattern more than um, I don't know, a finding
Mhm.
perhaps. It might be better than a pattern or a trend because it's not really a
It's like
trend.
corroborating
I've just
evidence
related
almost.
two things, and yeah.
Sorry. I'm
Oh no, Gil, I thought you started to say
well,
something.
I
Sorry.
was just saying like it's corroborating evidence, right? Like it
Right.
really is like so you have this this map, right? Or these corridors, like the whole system, like everything figured out, third party, totally separate from you. Took that, overlaid it on top of the points, right? And it was just like fit like a glove. Like that that had to have been an
It was
awesome
like a
moment.
eureka
Were you
moment.
screaming in your house when that happened?
Yeah. Sadly, my wife has to deal with a lot of the.
It's just like
You know how
It's
looking
like
not
at you
about
like,
maps again, is it?
you know how
I was playing
they
Call
said
of
like
Duty, I
being married is
swear.
like
Like,
being married is like telling you, sending pictures of what your pet is doing.
yeah.
Hey babe, look how cute the dog is.
yeah.
Instead for her it's, hey, look at this map. Look what I found. Look at look at this sighting. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
very supportive, but she probably gets a little. I'm very persistent,
Yeah.
so
You're like, no,
I
look,
have a
no,
lot of
seriously,
energy when it
look,
comes
like,
to.
look how cool this is. Wouldn't it be amazing though, if like going through your finding of these corridors with Bigfoot, if it also, like you're saying, correlated to like other animals going there, if your findings actually help correlate to find more information about migration patterns or like travel patterns of other animals, and like your research added to it, and then you're just like, hey, by the way, like it does lead more credence that Bigfoot is real, because like they're just, if you look at it like that, you could just say it's another offshoot of a evolution there, like of another animal. You're just like, come on.
Oh yeah,
you know
oh yeah. And speaking of other animals, one of the things that I also looked at for I don't know if you've talked to him or you probably should. I ought to make the connection. Alex Petikov with Small Town Monsters and On the Trail of Bigfoot. He's a really cool dude,
Mm-hmm.
and he went to Florida, and um, I did a map for him of Florida cougar sightings. So, it's an elusive creature. It kind of stays in the background. It's seen very seldomly, but we know it's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through tracks and other evidence on trail cams and sightings and things like that. So it's kind of a parallel to the way you would track Bigfoot, but it's with a known animal. So
Hmm.
he was down there looking for Bigfoot around Ocala, and he was also tracking Florida cougars. So yeah, you can absolutely use this data for other wildlife studies. You're absolutely right,
Hmm.
Joey.
It's just a cool thing because like yeah, you're just not really even, I guess you're stumbling upon it technically by just being inquisitive about everything you're looking at, especially looking at maps and being like, huh, these points are in a quite a bit of a line that goes through here. There's like a mountain range right there. Huh. And you're like finding these little datas, and then you go to other maps, like heat maps and stuff like that, and figure out adding them together. It's crazy that you're
Oh,
doing that.
you're describing a really big part of the way I try to work, and I did a map about it. I think I came up with the Bitterroot Range um, as kind of I call it an analog, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
do we know we have Bigfoot sightings, and then where are similar areas or areas in between that look like they would host Bigfoot? And it's kind of the same thing. I look at where we have these known sightings and all the attributes that we've captured for these cluster areas,
Mm-hmm.
and then look for other areas that are either more remote, so we're going to have less people, but they have the same kind of attributes, and then we start to fill in the blanks. So yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head with that one, big time.
So when we're looking at these maps with like corridors, right, and then we have or the Bigfoot byways, right, and we're looking at these corridors.
Killer name, by the way.
Yeah, it is nice.
Alliteration, my friend.
um, well, I'm curious to know. So, based off of like the history of industrial and residential development in the U.S., like how so we have to look at this like this is more than three-dimensional when we're looking at the data, right? Like we also have the dimension of time involved in this. And I know there was just, and I totally want to get to this at some point, but like the update to the database, right, in terms of like historical sightings. And for me, when I pull Bigfoot Mapping Project app on my phone and I'm like looking, you have these different colored dots as like markers of like where Bigfoot has been seen in the last 7 days or a 48-hour encounter or historical and things like that. Now, when you took and you overlaid these the sightings versus like these corridors, um, I guess like did you account for some of those sightings might have been in the 50s and entire neighborhoods didn't exist at the time, or highways might have like not exist, like how does that work with time? Because you have so much data going back, you have current data, and especially before the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and stuff like that, like land was just getting chewed up like crazy across the
Mm-hmm.
country. So that map of like where I guess just nature's allowed to travel and exist and live totally shifted, in those years. Yeah. So like, how are you accounting for that?
That's a really good question. So the green infrastructure data, the least cost pathway data is current. It's based on current
Hmm.
conditions in the field. But a good way to account for that would be to use historical land use, land cover data.
Okay.
So I could build a historical model that takes into account some of the historical land use and land cover if I can get those data sets. But that's the challenge,
Yeah.
right? Some of these data sets didn't come into existence, you know, until recent decades, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would
Yeah.
say, with the advent of advanced computing, they just didn't have the ability to make some of these data sets as accurate as they are today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And just in terms of like
um,
byways, that's a fairly new field. right? Like in terms of like
Well,
actually giving a fuck about nature and thinking about that. That's kind of a new
well, yeah,
field.
that's the whole purpose of the data set.
Yeah.
Really, it's green
Hmm.
infrastructure is that's what that data set is actually for. I've said this before. I don't think they ever thought putting it out there, somebody doing Bigfoot research would pick it up and do something
Y'all
with it.
messed up. You know,
They'll be like, this guy's nuts. Like, okay, but yeah. So what it really is for is like you described. Instead of just eating up land and devouring valuable habitat
Mhm.
for different animals, what they can do now is develop responsibly so they know where the heaviest pathways are. They can build around them. They can build land bridges over highways, those types of things. And there's a lot more of that now. And that's as a result of being able to create models like this for wildlife. It's really actually a really cool data set when you think about the big picture of what it's being used for.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I hope I can use it to find Bigfoot, but
There's nothing selfish about
you
that.
gotta.
No.
It's always about just taking that square peg and fit into a round hole. You
Mhm.
got to look for every kind of data set you can find and use it in different ways and be creative, right? Because there's not necessarily data sets out there dedicated to finding Bigfoot, but there are data sets out there that are dedicated to conserving wildlife. So, if you apply that same wildlife conservation principle to the study of Bigfoot, you can really get pretty far. Um,
Yeah.
and start to infer and learn a lot of data and share some cool information.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of, why I originally hit you up way back on episode 8. You just kind of hit on that when you said there's not any data sets out there looking for Bigfoot. You are. The Bigfoot mapping project is. And like that's what's so significant about it is like you're pioneering this. Like you really are pioneering this approach to it, you
Mhm.
know? And when you're doing that, it's all fair game. Whatever the heck kind of data you can get your hands on, that's fair game because you're breaking ground. Nope. Okay, so looking at things, I guess, like in a historical perspective, and this is why I was kind of getting to that, how
Hmm.
many of those sightings might have been in previous corridors, right? They might have been in previous greenways, and I guess I'm kind of picturing this as like a finished result of if you had, let's just say, a map of the United States, right? And you were looking at it from like an aerial view, and you were showing a time lapse with like color coded areas like changing based off of like neighborhoods expanding and like contracting and roads being put in and things like that. Like how much more would that fit like a glove? Because I have a strong feeling that pattern would continue, you know because what you're looking at now is like the concentration of a long history fitting into that. So those outliers might have been perfectly in line, before
Mhm.
the cities, roads, neighborhoods, plants, everything expanded on that. Um, yeah, it's just a thought around that because if it's already fitting so damn well, all right. So here's a question for you then. And this is totally off script, but
That's what I'm here
I
for.
feel like
well,
that's what we always do, though.
I don't know why I still
I'm
It's
apologize.
happy.
Scott.
I'm good.
Um,
Just so the listeners know, I don't get any questions ahead of time.
yeah.
None. There's no softball pitches
Yeah,
here.
he's blind in
So
this
the
So
right now.
listeners know, Gil's
yeah,
just always
He looks at a
I'm so
paper just to
sorry.
look like he's looking at something
he's doodling.
with a
He's
pen. Yeah,
doodling.
Oh,
yeah,
He's
my
like,
coloring
what's
book now.
next?
yeah,
But
Yeah.
I'm just seeing colors. No,
yeah.
where's I gonna go with that? Okay, so all right, so next up on that, I guess, would be climate change, right? And
Mm,
that can go down to the leading causes and the sources behind it, whether it's mega farms, like expanding, um, wildfires, right? So that's honestly something I've wondered about a million times over. Is where the hell did the Bigfoot go when like 400 square miles is on fire and rapidly moving across like the Pacific Northwest or something? Like, are there any moments correlated, or is there any data or anything that you found that's correlated to like, hey, wildfires are going like crazy during this time, and there's been an insane uptick in Bigfoot sightings. Like within like the week before, the week after, during like any type of major like natural disasters or something like that that's going on, like swamp ape. So we get down to Florida. It's like when you get these crazy hurricanes coming through, are they just hunkering down? Are they like, yeah, been through worse? Like, do they not care? I imagine they do care about wildfires, right? Like, so what? Has there been anything that's? Have you looked into anything like that yet? Because I'm like, where are they going during this?
That's a good question. I haven't looked into that historically, but we do track current wildfire perimeters in the app. You can turn it on and see it in the
Yeah.
app. And my thought on that when I added that was actually more centered around safety because I was concerned that people would be out using the app
Just walk
in the
into a
wilderness and not realize what's going on around them.
Yeah.
So I was thinking more of an HSE moment when I put the current wildfires in there so people could be safe and avoid a dangerous situation. But I think we've talked one of the shows you did bring up natural disasters.
I'm still wondering.
Yeah, you're still wondering, and I need to do that because next time you're going to bring it up, and I want to
Swear
have
to
an
God, I
answer for you. But
yeah, no.
I'll need to. There is a lot of historical data around hurricane paths. Um, I'll have to look for. I don't know of an existing data set for historical wildfire perimeters. I'm sure there's point data
Yeah.
where I can kind of buffer based on the square mileage and just kind of make an educated guess on the area of the fire. But I think hurricane and hurricane paths and exact days when they made landfall, how much it rained, that's all available. So I think you should keep your eyes peeled. I can't give you any answers now, but just check the Instagram in a couple weeks. If the baby doesn't come, it might be in the next week. I'll get it done. But if he comes any sooner, just you might have to wait a couple months.
Scott,
because I'm gonna have
Scott,
some.
what's really going to be happening is you're going to have the baby sitting on your chest and you're sitting there creating that maps while the baby's sleeping and you're not sleeping all night. You're just like, I got to do something.
Yep. It's gonna be red eyes over the keyboard, holding the baby, feeding them, and making some crazy maps because I'll be sleep deprived. So
yeah.
just when you're reading anything I'm posting, if I post, just bear in mind that I'm using very few brain cells to get it out there.
The
So
comparisons to
whatever I've
giraffe
got left.
sightings to Seth. I don't know if this correlates, but I'm just going to throw this up here right now.
But right now it does.
Yeah, right now it does. I'm
Right now,
seeing it.
I can see it.
Yeah. So no, I think that's a very good thought. I'm gonna have to dig and find some data sets to analyze. I mean, I've got in the data set I have date and time of sighting, so it would be very easy to correlate within like a week of each sighting and see what they do. If they're more active, if they're less active, where they're active, if they're inland. I would imagine they go inland, just like people do, but they might follow the same hurricane evacuation routes that people do right along.
Aw.
True.
Just
But I really don't know. I'm curious, just like you. So
yeah.
I wish I had a better answer, but
Well-
now I just have another thing to put on the list.
No pressure. Well, I mean, it comes back to me. So I haven't read a lot of things about it. I would love to do an episode on this eventually, but I did come across like random stories or accounts at some point of a bunch of Bigfoot sightings during the Mount St. Helens eruption, right? But that also correlated with black helicopters and like a government coming in and like all sorts of like suspicious stuff. Again, those were a lot of like one-off stories, not enough to really do a full episode on, but it's something I've been kind of keeping my eye on. And I was like, yeah, well, like it's well known, say for instance in the case of like a tsunami, like birds, small animals, everybody, they take the fuck off like sometimes days before that shit hits. Like they're like, nope.
Absolute earthquakes too,
Yeah.
right?
Like we're out of here, right? And same thing happened with like Mount St. Helens. They're just like animals were just like getting the fuck out of there. so it's only natural, Bigfoot, like, they could hide in a very well developed cave, during a wildfire, maybe. Definitely might be able to survive a hurricane, but like volcanic eruption might be a different story, you know? So you'd think they'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
we should get the fuck out. Um, and then that just kind of got me going on that was like there if they are there, especially in these areas where these things happen, right, where these major events happen, those are also some of the like areas that are most dense with sightings, just in general. And it's like, well, that's their neighborhood. But okay, enough about that now.
Okay.
I've been curious, again, going back to like you said, like you found the Bigfoot byways, right? um
Hmm.
what other observations have you made as this data has come in that have kind of um, brought you to a new edge of developing like a hypothesis? Or do you have any new theories around anything as this info is coming in?
That's you're hitting me with the good ones. I've actually recently done some analysis for other
Mhm.
researchers, and one of the things that Alex Pedikov, who I talked about earlier, and Emily, the Forest Fleur, she has a research site and podcast that she does as well. We've all talked about is the number of road crossings, and that Bigfoot are so intelligent. How come there are so many just road crossings that are just happenstance,
Mm,
right? And one of the things that I mapped was the road density in the United States, and well, really just the United States against all the sightings. And really, when you start to look at it that way, the road network, unless you're in a really mountainous area that's pretty sparse, is very hard to avoid if you want to get anywhere as an animal. Hence the land bridges I referenced
mhm,
earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see so many deer, bobcats, bears, elusive creatures. Eventually, you're going to see them on the side of the road, unfortunately.
mhm,
So that's one of the things that I started to think about is, and it's not a theory about Bigfoot, but it's a theory about how people affect Bigfoot. And one of the things was these road networks, and they're effectively like barriers, right? Like a river
yeah,
would be. And how did we carve up and make different cells that, and islands, for example, that Bigfoot gets stuck in, perhaps, or gets isolated,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just can't leave because it's dangerous. Maybe there's a highway and they're very elusive. So I started to think about and focus on more about people's impact now that I've made so many different maps about environmental factors and uh, like forest canopy and type of forest and all the different environmental and ecological data sets I can look at. I'm starting to hit on and get to how people affect Bigfoot. So that's my new focus is, all right, how have they lived alongside of us for so long, so successfully? What are the factors that influence them that we directly have control over? And then what if, like our development too, even indirect consequences like global warming, like you said, right? So there's a lot of people focused research that I've been doing lately, and it's pretty interesting.
i I love that approach, especially coming, or going to like, the some of the first European sightings of Bigfoot were in logging camps, and
Hmm.
some of them weren't exactly friendly encounters in logging camps, right? We had,
No, I
yeah,
mean that like Ape
yeah.
Canyon, that wasn't in Europe, but it was in
No, I just mean like
the Northwest, Pacific Northwest.
white folks
Yeah.
coming into the U.S. Like it was their first sightings with Bigfoot, and like Bigfoot didn't seem super happy about what they were doing at the time.
No,
You're logging
they're not.
their area. I mean, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah,
It's like that was my
Yeah, they're cutting
home.
down their house,
Yep, that
right?
was my home. You know.
bro, that's where we were going after prom.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
so I do have a kind of a thought too to go along with what you guys were talking about with like humans directly affecting stuff happening like that. Wouldn't it be also great? I always like to think of things that wouldn't be great is if at the end of your research, and I don't know where the end lies. I don't think it lies anywhere until you're 100 years old with long fingernails clacking on the keyboard, or you have a new contact lens that
Your
allows you
baby's
to
holding
shoot
you
the
while it's working on a map.
yes, it's now became the opposite. And you're sitting there like you're sitting in the old folks home being like, Bigfoot, I found him finally. That at that moment they become recognized as an endangered species, and like that you're just like, I did it. That's my goal. What
Now I
would
can go
be
on to a better
now
place.
I can go on here. My last breath. So in the end, I think we might have asked this before too, but I just kind of want to, reiterate too. What is like one of your end goals to getting to this? Is it education? Is it laws of some sort to kind of get them, maybe endangered species, or what?
So, my end goal would be conservation,
Mm.
right? So, but my approach is step by step. So, just like I did the project, I'm gathering every bit of data possible. So, I think a primary goal would be just to build a better understanding of Bigfoot and contribute that to the community where it's a solid, factual profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of where do they live? What is their behavior? How do they interact with humans? Why do they interact with humans? How do we affect them? Things like that. And then from there, once we have the understanding, I think laws are tough because laws a lot of times are very reactionary. So I wouldn't want to rush into getting anything on the books because that could be limiting unintentionally.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know but what's really going to get passed, right? So I think if we have a good understanding first and we use that to influence what's going on the books, in the laws, and how people start to regulate their interactions and protect Bigfoot as a species,
Mm-hmm.
um, in the end game, I would just like to take a slow, responsible approach based on good information, and then build a conservation program based on real good data and years of thought and understanding. I think, um, of course, I'd love to find Bigfoot tomorrow, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah,
So I have to be patient, and I think that was a very thoughtful question of what do I want my research career to be like, and how do I want it to contribute? And I'd very much like it to be a positive contribution that helps protect a species that's out there that doesn't seem to need our protection, right?
yeah.
So they're doing fine
Yeah.
alongside of us, but eventually, as Gil highlighted, we're going to expand and expand and expand further, and we may have more sightings. They seem to be increasing now. The site's got a lot more reports. So I think just having a good understanding of what to do when you see a Bigfoot, what you can do to protect them if you are building or if you're traveling or
Mm-hmm.
hiking or all of those things, I think that'll go into keeping them around, protecting them, and hopefully um, having more and more reports in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Now that I've asked that thoughtful question.
Yeah.
So when feasibly is when are you running for Congress? When can I say Senator Scott Tompkins
Vote for Scott as a
con-
vote for Bigfoot.
vote for Scott? Yes.
That's a good question. I think I
2030?
have to find a state that's very pro Bigfoot
Okay.
that wouldn't, there's a lot of slander that could go on, right? If, I run on a Bigfoot platform,
True.
people might not take me seriously, even though, there's a lot of byproducts of being concerned about protecting Bigfoot. And that goes hand in hand with protecting
For
wildlife.
sure.
I think it could be a great platform. I've never thought about running, but, you know,
You heard it here first.
yeah, yeah,
2030. I'm saying
Wow.
2030. That gives you enough time to do a lot of data research, to get
Find
your mindset, to
Bigfoot.
get to
Get your
find.
kid
You don't even have
enrolled
to
in
find him.
school.
Kid enrolled in school for sure.
Yep.
Get your kids, kind of an age that they
Yeah.
can start going to school, so then
Let's
you can
see,
go
7 years.
campaign.
Yeah.
I'd be mid 40s,
Perfect.
probably fully white beard, maybe have some hair left.
Yeah.
You know, I would look just eccentric enough to be taken seriously. So
I think it's a good plan.
cool. Yeah, I
think
think I'll start gearing up for that.
I love it. I love to hear it. Perfect.
Well,
You're encouraging chaos. I like it.
that's what we're here
I
for.
like it.
That's what we're here for. Yes.
If you notice the black cat as our logo.
Yeah, touche.
Yes.
I should. Yeah.
Okay, so you said that sightings are on the rise. Real quick though, just to kind of qualify that. The number of sightings getting submitted to the Bigfoot mapping project, or just sightings as a whole, like across the board, or both, I guess.
Well, both
Okay.
really. I mean, if you've seen the news lately, there's been all kinds of um, focus on some sightings, like the Littleton, Colorado sighting,
Yep.
where they had the Bigfoot. And they saw him from the train, and there's a new video that came out of like a crime scene looking Bigfoot that has AI written all
Oh my
over it to
God.
me. But
That
it's yeah,
must be hard to deal with too, is being just like, oh God, now I'm dealing with fake stuff by AI printed, and you're just like, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, and
generative AI is a whole nother probably show. If you talk about data,
yeah,
um, that's let's dog ear that and come back to AI.
literally,
That'll be
that was
episode
a
4.
no,
That'll be
that was a
episode 4 with
question.
Scott Tompkins.
No, no.
Oh, is it a
No,
question?
by
Good.
by
So
that point, it's just going to be our AI avatars on episode 4,
Yeah,
another
yeah.
year. But so yeah, no. You hit on that hoax, and I'm pretty sure it was what was it? It was like a mascot for a local car dealership or something like
Mhm.
that, right?
Sasquatch expedition trailers.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was actually in Littleton like a week before, or maybe 10 days before that
How
happened.
pissed were
I was
you when you
driving
thought it
to
might
go
have
elk
been
hunting.
a real Bigfoot and you had just been there a week before?
I would have been so
I was like,
upset.
God
But
damn
I was driving through. There's a big mountain pass right before you get to that town. It's a
Mhm.
little
it.
town, and I mean, you're looking over the edge as you're driving. It's like you're getting vertigo,
Mhm.
and we stopped in that town. We weren't far from the expedition trailer place and where the sighting occurred, and it looked squatchy. I hiked all over there for. I was up there elk hunting in the backcountry with a friend of mine for like almost 10 days,
Dang.
and we didn't see any Sasquatch or any elk really.
Mm.
So, but we covered a lot of terrain. It's just when you get there, I guess the point I'm trying to make is when you really get there and see just how vast
Yeah.
and how many valleys and crevasses, if you will, are there. I mean, you could be standing 20 feet from an elk and they're 900 pounds and you might not see them. So
Yeah.
it's there's so many places for a creature like Bigfoot who's intelligent to be able to hide and avoid people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially
Pretty crazy.
yeah, and that's something I guess I've noticed, and I probably have said this before too, but I still feel this way. It's like a lot of the folks that are just kind of like, poo-pooing like the idea of Bigfoot. Um, one of my next follow-up questions will just be like, how much have you traveled? Not in an airplane, but I mean like driven across the country. This country's fucking huge. Like it's really, really fucking huge. Going from I've done this multiple times, but going from like Tampa, Florida up to like Seattle, like holy crap. It is
Mhm.
That's
it's expansive and
it's a
just
journey.
yeah, it is. And like you get to areas like you're talking about where it's just like miles and miles of nothing where 40, 50, 60 feet away from you there might be a giant ass bear that you just straight up don't see. Like it's just like it's not hard. Like I guess when we think about like modern day life, we always think of like cities, maybe towns, and it's populated. We don't actually think about like how much of this country is not populated at all. And if there are folks living there,
Oh,
they own 400 acres and they're just kind of like a little dot in the distance walking to their trailer,
Mhm.
or walking to their tractor or whatever. It's just like, dude, it's not the idea of Bigfoot existing out there is not far-fetched. That's all I'm gonna say, especially if it's just like
no, it's
if it
not.
has eyes and it's looking
There's
at us, it could avoid us.
Mhm.
so, and it knows you're coming.
Yeah.
I mean, most things see you coming or hear you or smell you for that matter. But I mean, I think one of the other things that goes right hand in hand with what you're saying, Gil, is people that are skeptical of Bigfoot always say, "Well, why isn't he on a trail camera? Why isn't Bigfoot on a trail camera? Their trail cameras are everywhere," and they're not.
Yeah.
They're as far into the woods as a hunter wants to walk,
Yeah.
right? And they're as far as if you have a cellular trail camera, they're as far as you get cell service, right? Because they'll put them, and I have them. I have a bunch out there, and they're where I have the best service and where I know deer funnel,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that's what I'm looking for. And I can tell you right now, I don't walk very far for a trail camera if I don't have to, because I know I have to go back
Yeah.
and get it, right? So or if it's not a cell cam, you have to go back and get the card. So people are, I don't want to say lazy, but they look for the most convenient setup,
Mhm.
right? And hunters want to be efficient, and a lot of times they have a lot of trail cameras, so they want to get to them pretty quickly. Unless there are a lot of patient hunters who um will put the work in, but for the most part, I'd say 95% of hunters out there are just putting trail cameras on that. Well, in Texas, they're putting them on their feeders, right?
Mhm.
And if they're any other place where you can't bait, they're putting them somewhere close to their tree stand, right? Which is usually pretty obvious if you're intelligent. You can find a trail camera and a tree stand pretty easy. So if you're a Bigfoot, those are easy places to avoid. It's like a big billboard of, hey, there's a person's been here.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's easy to say like, oh, there's trail cameras everywhere, but I mean, for one, they're not everywhere, especially when you get further out west or in sparser areas where there's just vast areas of square miles of nothing but wilderness.
Mhm.
And then also, we've probably all walked past a trail camera, and I mean, you can spot it immediately once you get within 100 feet of it, or at least they're fairly
Yeah.
obvious, unless they're high up or something like that. But most of them aren't because they need to be conveniently reached.
Yeah.
So it all boils down to the way people interact. Like I was saying before, the way people interact with the wilderness, and it's easy to say unless you've been out there. To your point, have you traveled? Have you hiked in the backcountry? Have you really paid attention to all the areas where there's no trails, no motorized vehicle trails,
Mhm.
there's just game trails out there or nothing. And some areas are just too thick to even get to, too hard, too steep, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're exactly right when you say
Yeah.
that.
I mean, like even out in Colorado, like last time I was out there, near Boulder, we went on like a 2-day hike just going into the camping spot, you know, and we
Mm-hmm.
were covering about somewhere between like 9 to 12 miles a day, which is, getting up at sunrise and going until it's like almost too dark to find wood for a fire. Like that is some rough hiking, um
Oh my God, yeah, especially if you're at elevation and
and like
it's tough.
yeah, and like you're days away from the nearest road. There's nobody out there, there's nothing out there, and like fun fact about humans, we are always the loudest thing in the woods. you like
Yes.
but you did bring up the incident with the mascot, right? And last time we spoke there had been the incident with the fake skull, right? The gorilla
Oh
skull
yeah, that's
that
right.
was pulled out of the mud, and it was all over, and then there was controversy, and then obviously people started thinking about like, well, what are the legal repercussions going to be because he pulled this out of Canada and that was protected, like it was going nuts. um but I want to ask, so like, where do you go, right? Like, how do you cut through the fog? Where do you look first when these stories do break, right? And like every news station is publishing articles saying Bigfoot with a question mark next to it, right? Like, where do you go where you're like, hold up, let me check my
Oh,
sources.
from a technology standpoint, like a forensic, has this image ever been published anywhere else? Is the first place I go, right?
Okay.
Like image search. Where did this really come from? What's the origin of this picture? Um, and then Joey said it before. Is this AI
Hmm.
generated? Does it have a signature there so you can plug it into like an AI detection type software? Um, so that's the first initial place I go to, and then the next place I go to is the Bigfoot community. I ping everyone I know that is going to be paying attention to this, and I'm like, all right, this is what I think. Like that screams human to me. This just looks too, the gait looks too close to a human, or uh, all these different things depending on what we're talking about. But the next place I go is after I've formed my opinion based on what I've found, is I go bounce that off of other people and see what they think, and what their point of view is, and then we discuss it. And usually we drill down to a good opinion because everyone has different ideas, different experiences, and um, we usually get to a point where we're like, we find like this one little thread, and we keep pulling at it
Mm-hmm.
until we're sure that our things are, it's either a hoax. We're hopeful the whole time that it's not, but most of the time, unfortunately, it's a stunt or a hoax, or like a like the stunt with the gorilla skull, and like you referred to, that was a TV stunt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so.
So I think that's a great idea also to add to your stories, is since you're like big into like, okay, that's not really true, or like this is actually something that could be true, is for you to be the person to be like, hey, I've gathered all this evidence since I see this stuff all the time. I talk to people, this is fake. Kind of educating people to make sure people aren't spreading it, because then that also hurts your platform and hurts the platform of what you're trying to do of conservation. It's like, well, then people are gonna be like, well, what does it matter? It's all fake. It doesn't matter. But it's like, no, it all matters, because it's adding to a psychology behind it. It's adding to the, in quotations, like mythology behind it. It would be a
Mhm.
cool thing for you to like kind of educate people on like, hey, this is not a real thing. Like I've done the research behind it, or hey, this is a real thing. And you can call it Bigfoot lieways as like the, yeah.
You've been
I
you've been holding that one for a
Just
while, haven't
waiting.
you?
just
You've been
a
He
waiting
wrote
to.
just a
that
minute
down
ago
and
I
then
came with
came up
that.
with the question.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Hey, that's how I work. Okay. How do I
Dessert,
incorporate this?
dessert before dinner,
Start
huh?
Yep.
from the
Yeah.
goal.
But yeah, I think that's
No,
a
I think
fun.
that's a great idea. I mean, to go further on your point, I think that there are people out there that might cause a stir with some of their reports or posts that they make, and it might not be from a nefarious
Yeah,
place,
for
but
sure.
it's from an uneducated or unaware place where they're misidentifying things and misclassifying things, or they might not be very experienced in nature, and they just make assumptions. Like if you don't know things, you fill in the gaps,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So your brain's going to go to, oh, that eye shine I saw that was 10 feet up was, had to be Bigfoot, when it's just like a raccoon in a tree looking at you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, they still make some racket, and they are a little spooky. So
Mhm.
it's easy to, it's easy to get flustered and then fill in the gaps. But I like your idea of sharing, and every once in a while I share like a story about like some like something around wildlife. Like I just
Mhm.
posted a piebald bear that was seen in Washington, where it's like brown and white. And then I posted one the other day about an owl who has red eye shine,
Mhm.
and somebody made a comment, "Oh, that kind of reminds me of Mothman." And I was like, "Oh, it's funny you bring up Mothman. That's actually possibly a misidentified sandhill crane, right?
Mhm.
Sandhill cranes are huge. Like they're huge." So I mean, I'm not saying Mothman doesn't, actually don't really have opinion about Mothman. I don't, that's not my thing. So,
You're jumping into
but
a deep end right here,
well,
Scott, with Gil. I don't know if you want to jump into that deep end
All
with
right.
Gil.
all
Didn't
the
know I was
reactions. That's
interviewing
why I
J.
like
Allen Hynek back in the day. Whatever.
it. But like, I guess my point is that if you're gonna make a hobby out of looking for Bigfoot,
Mhm.
or a focus on doing research, the first thing you need to really understand, and myself too, like I'm not claiming to know, I know a lot, but I'm always still learning too, and I'm open to being taught things. Like I didn't know there was an owl out there that had red eye shine. That's why I shared it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that if you're going to get out into the wilderness, just to be safe, so you
Yeah.
know the behaviors of like predators, for example, like mountain lions. If you hear something that sounds like a bird, sometimes it's actually a mountain lion, right? They have a high pitch, they don't meow, or they don't always just roar.
And they also have the
So
baby cry, which is
Yeah,
fucking
exactly.
horrifying
Like
to hear in the woods at night. But yeah, sorry.
terrifying. I've really only heard a bobcat, and that made my hair stand up. So, and they sounded like, speaking of the baby cry, I was hunting. I was sitting in the dark. And it was like an hour before sunrise, maybe a little longer. I heard the baby cry for like a half hour, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I know what it
Yeah.
is, and I'm still getting scared, right? Because it's like just this eerie cry. It just sounds like a human.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't know what that was, or that animals made that sound, imagine how freaked out you'd be.
Yeah, or you'd run
So
to
it's,
it and be like, "Oh my god, I got to save this baby that's out in the middle of nowhere."
uh, yeah, I mean,
I mean,
The
nobody's
thing.
gonna do that, but like,
No,
it,
I
I
would
mean,
push
true.
back
Yeah.
on that. Don't want to get too
people
far
may.
away from Bigfoot, but there is
Yes,
a
yes,
lot of
exactly.
Sorry,
a
yeah.
lot of
Reel us in.
well, no, a lot of people believe though that mountain lions do that specifically to hunt humans or to fuck with humans, like,
Could be.
which honestly, as somebody who has 2 cat children in their life, I believe that 100%. And like for domestication's sake, people actually, or they actually believe, scientists, vague term there, but uh believe that cats chose to be domesticated. Like they actively were
Yes,
like, yeah, you're all
100% makes
right.
sense.
And they carry that privilege to this day where they're like, mm-mm. So I 100% believe that like mountain lions in those situations, because they will fuck you up and they will hunt your ass, they will stalk your ass. They are very intentional
Oh,
in
they're
what they
smart.
do and
I
horrifying.
just heard something about mountain lions where they're so much more successful in hunting that they wolves started following them
Yeah.
around, and the mountain lions would kill and stash. They bury or stash
Hang it up in a
their
tree.
kills.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly, or under a log somewhere or something. They would stash um, kills and lead the pack of wolves past each kill just to get them off their back so the mountain lion could go eat. And it would be like 7 different stashes, and it would just be, it's that successful. They're like, all right, wolves, like pick one so I can go eat my dinner in peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're very successful predators. I mean, I think that also just speaks to the possible intelligence of Bigfoot, right? To
Nice.
get back to how smart, comparing how smart a mountain lion is and their strategy of getting the wolves off, like that's some critical thought in a
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
way. And if mountain lions can think like that, what can Bigfoot do? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he evades everything. Like we get shots here and there. We hear stuff, we see stuff, but like just in a massive generalization, he evades everything. So that like ninja like, honestly, ability is a lot of critical thought.
Well, that just, goes
And
it
skill.
goes back
And
to my
skill.
theory that mountain lions are just Bigfoot's cat. And they're just
Oh my god,
This is a new theory.
like
Yes.
you never see Bigfoot because the cat's out there hunting, like bringing it back. But just saying, just a thought. Just
And,
a,
and if you
Bigfoot,
go into a
definitely
friend's
cat
house
person. But
and there's cats there, you don't even see the person. You see this cats,
yeah,
like you're not even.
it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely keeps people away from him. But
Yeah.
Bigfoot would not be a dog person just because dogs are too loud. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm not trying to knock dog people too much, but he had a dog. It starts barking. You're like, shh, no, shh, they're right over there. Like that would never work. It would never work.
Yeah, you're
Just
right.
saying.
A stealthy mountain lion would be a better pet
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
for Bigfoot
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
For sure.
Well,
Yeah.
all right. So
Please use that as the quote from the show. Like people are going to see that and wonder, like, what the heck do these guys talk about?
what the
Bigfoot's
fuck
pet,
is going
the mighty mountain lion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where was I on this? So kind of going back to, I'm gonna have to highlight and chop chop this. It's an
Chop away.
ADD driven awesomeness. But yeah. So to kind of go back to, I guess what you and Joey were both kind of like hitting on, like, an event again back to the project. In my mind, like each report, right, is kind of like a vote towards social awareness, right? Like, when they are isolated, they're just tales, but put together, they become a paradigm, right? Like ideally, and that's why I love the Bigfoot mapping project so much. it's actually building a collective case, right? Like that's honestly what it where like eventually the data, at least the way I see it, and think about it, is that it'll become so overwhelming that like naysayers would frankly have a better time like arguing with gravity, right? It's just like, dude, like please just look at this fucking, and I mean shit, there's still people that believe the earth is flat. So they'll
That
always be there, you know.
yes.
Um but one thing I have noticed though, and this kind of all ties back, is that when people talk about their sightings, it's a lot of times they're having a struggle of like acceptance with it, especially for folks that didn't believe or maybe even mocked like any conversations around Bigfoot before that. Um, well, they tend to either, become humbled or become diehards. Both reactions totally understandable, but what I want to know is um, if there's anything you've noticed, heard about, because you are collecting all these reports, right? Um, what has your approach been to kind of help people get out of their shells around things, right? Because it is hard for folks to come out and say this stuff, even if they've, converted and become a believer, and they know that it's true. They're still surrounded by a lot of folks that still didn't feel that way, or still don't feel that way. They're in the family where like they don't feel that way, where they're the dad and they've always made fun of everybody for it, but now they're a believer and they can't tell their kids, like, um, what happens in the moments before the report, right? Like how do we go about, or how can we go about, or any ideas about getting more folks to submit and kind of like get over that fear? It's a long question, but I think
No, we got there. I think one of the ways that, and probably the biggest way that I handle that would be a similar approach to what Amy Boo says about Project Zoo Book is what happens in Project Zoo Book stays in Project Zoo Book. And that's not exactly what happens if you make a report to the project. It hits the web, but you are not tied to that. That's what a lot of other, even actually the John Green database that I just looked at, he collected like a lot of witness information, which I understand and I think is necessary for a lot of validation, but you also intimidate people if they know that their name is going to be attached to this information and they don't know who's going to be looking at it or where it's going to go. So I do capture, the only thing I capture if you make a report is your email, right? So I can follow up if I need to. But the biggest, I think, appeal for people to make a report and submit to the BMP is to that they realize that their story can get out there, they can contribute good information and not really be exposed,
yeah,
right? They can stay private, but they can still share their story. And I think for a lot of people that, at least recently, that have put sightings in, they seem to be a little relieved to get it off of their chest. I've had people reach out after they made their sighting and send me actually a bunch of emails that I still like. I'm talking like pages of emails where they just, once that dam broke and they put that submission in, they are like, all right, here's more info, and like they ran out of information in the form and they're like, I had to send you this email because I just had to tell you all this. And it's just like, and it's not just one person, it's a whole, it's like this release for them, and it's really kind of an unintended or unexpected consequence of putting the it wasn't something I thought of when I thought of crowdsourcing information. I didn't realize that people would react like that, and feel the urge or the comfort to talk to me about these things. But I think um, unintentionally, I've also started like Bigfoot Anonymous, right? Where it's like, hi, I'm a witness, and you know, uh, that's the first step, right?
yeah,
So, um,
You are killer with these names, though,
yeah.
Scott.
I know.
I'm telling you, this branding is on fire.
I missed the calling for marketing, Gil. I
Hey
think.
man, I can get you jobs. I got you.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest appeal. Back to your question, that most people see when they hit the website. they realize that, they can share everything they want to share. I don't judge them. I don't lead them with any questions other than what's in the form. I don't have an opinion about what their story is. I just want to be able to get the data out of it, and that's all I ask for. And um, I appreciate somebody having the desire and will to to submit a report, because it can be a lighthearted subject, but depending on what people saw, it can shake their whole world too, because they might think, they might have different beliefs or whatever their worldview is, and then they see something like Bigfoot, and they're just like, well, the my whole reality just went out the window,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So I think that's the biggest appeal, and really the biggest way that I handle somebody who doesn't want to be known as, the guy in town who's screaming about Bigfoot. They have a safe place to go, and they know what they tell, what they submit is going to be used in a positive way. I hope that comes through. um, and I'm never going to disparage anybody. I do get trolls. I read somebody just actually asked me today on Facebook Messenger, um, what do you do for all the sightings that are made up? And I was like, I read them all. And if it seems like I'm being trolled, or there's vulgar stuff in there, which weirdly people enjoy submitting lately in the last couple weeks.
Oh God, no.
I don't know if they're just I don't know
Just
what it is,
weird
but
Bigfoot romance
there's been like
stories.
4 or 5 sightings where they're pretty creative.
Mm,
So I'm like, that needs to get weeded out, but um, you can clearly tell it's a troll.
Yeah.
But other than that, uh, most of the reports stay in unless they're, like I said, vulgar or um, harassing of some type or something like that. If they have good information in it, and sometimes that's even just location, um, I keep them in there. And that goes back to, people will probably roll their eyes at that because the BFRO and other databases have a different approach, where it's they go and they try to shoot holes through all the sightings to make sure that they're as concrete as possible. And I understand that you want to have good data in, but I guess my point of view is a little bit different, where I'm going to collect as much as I can and then whittle it down and what's the word, distill it
mhm.
down until I get the real high quality information, and the rest of the junk will fall out. So it's just a different approach. And I think that's how I'd like to address, the critics out there.
Yeah.
You're just a complete data analyst, honestly. Like you're doing some data analysis big time to get through some of this. And I feel like that shines through a lot on like not of like a bias opinion, and I think that that's like a huge thing, especially because like you just said, you're not leading these people into giving you information that you're looking to get. You're just like, tell me, you know just tell me what you saw, what you feel, what was in that moment. And I think that there is like a great rawness and honestly realness to this, because and I think that what also, you're talking about a kind of a release and like a therapy almost of like giving you this information. And I think that helps your data be even maybe more concrete than other people's, because you're kind of just letting that openness come in. And like you said, maybe people that weren't comfortable going to somebody else because their data and their name or whatever, maybe they're at work in the government and they're like, I can't really talk about this because I've seen it, because it'll, I'm like an FBI agent or something, I can't do that. They're just like, here, here's information. So it's like it feels like it's such a raw, real kind of thing that you're working through. So it's like really cool to see that.
It's actually, I think I said this earlier. I didn't expect to connect with so many people, because I love talking to people. I'm sure you guys can tell, right? But when I designed the project, it wasn't. I just thought people were going to jump on the app, and I was going to get like, all kinds of submissions, and that was just going to be a pretty like a, not a clinical approach, but like a pretty technological approach, where you don't, I thought I'd be behind a keyboard and just filtering through all kinds of data and just looking at all kinds of reports. But the people that submit reports, they do reach out, and there are conversations and friends that I've made, a lot of friends and really cool people who I didn't expect to be, chatting with over the last couple years
Mhm.
about different things, on Instagram or texting or email. Or so it's actually kind of I've been very lucky that the project's taken off as it has, and I've met the people that have been supporters and friends like you guys along the way. I mean, who would have thought? I didn't think this. I didn't think I'd be sitting third episode in, talking to you guys in 2023. It just, it's really an unintended uh, consequence, I guess, but an unintended result of starting the project. It's been a lot of fun, and my public speaking has improved. I used to stutter. We should go back and compare the first episode to this one.
Yeah, we'll do
So it's
back-to-back comparisons.
Um, just like are all three views up above each other?
Yes, yes.
Um, only difference is the beard. That's all I've got. That's the only change for me.
Yeah.
the beard's good.
Mhm.
Even I can see Joey's working on one too.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
So
I shave a lot, so it goes in and then I just shave it down because I don't know.
it's all about patience.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess I don't want to get too far away from the actual like reporting process though, because I feel like that's incredibly important, right? So you said that you more or less, folks can have a sense or like a security or a safety in anonymity if they want to. They could take it as far as they want after submission. It's not going to be one of these things where it's like they submit a sighting and all of a sudden it's like, and there's like news cameras outside of the house and like their faces all over the internet and people are like, what did he really do in third grade? Like it's not gonna, like, their lives aren't gonna go to shit.
Nope.
TMZ is not gonna be there. Like it's not gonna go crazy like that. It's just they're just helping to add another point of data in that direction, right? Again, it's that vote towards a paradigm shift, which would in the end ultimately help them reach that sense of relief that the people around them can
Right.
they can just basically be like, well, I don't give a fuck if you think the earth is flat and Bigfoot doesn't exist. That's what the science shows. Like, and they can have that sense of safety, that sense of security in saying that, right?
Mhm.
um well, with all that, so have you noticed any patterns in what makes a great report? Right? So like I know you have to, because like you're learning how
Mhm.
to find the BS, right? But I'm sure there's also ones that are coming through. You're just like, damn, set that one to the side, like is it the way people are acting during the actual encounter? Is it just the fact that they're great writers? Are they, when they're filming, are they like saying their name out loud and the location and the description? Because, Bigfoot always comes up blurry on camera. Like you should probably just be yelling out exactly what you're seeing. Like what goes into it? Is it, hey, this is like the footprint I found 3 days ago? Like how, I guess what I'm trying to say is if somebody is going to submit a report, and they're sitting there and, maybe they've just had this, Google Doc open forever and they're like writing it out and they're like, I don't really know what to put, I don't know what to say. What are some things that, you would say to get them their thoughts jogging on the process?
Okay. So I think I'm going to take this as a two-part. The first one would be if you're listening to this and you haven't had an encounter or don't have a report to make,
Mhm.
what can you do to be better prepared uh, anytime you're out? Even if you're not looking for Bigfoot. I mean, we all have a camera now, so that's great. It's in our cell phone, so we can use a camera. But I guess, and even for myself, this is a big area I can improve on. And I hate to say it, I have an embarrassing story about it, but I was actually out elk hunting, and we split up, my buddy and I. This is 2 years ago, and I really try to pay attention out there and really be aware. I hiked, I don't know, maybe a mile from him and rounded the side of the mountain down into a valley, and I was coming back, and in the mountains, when the shadows change and you're coming at things from a different direction, it really looks like a completely different place. And that's really how A, I came to understand how people get lost so easily. And B, I walked right past my buddy in bright orange. He was sitting behind a tree. I didn't see him. I didn't see him. So for me, improving my situational awareness is a big thing I've been practicing lately. I think, and in everyday life, I think situational awareness is just a good skill to have, because you read the headlines about people getting, snuck, at the gas station, people sneak in their passenger door or rob them, or all kinds of scenarios, right? So situational awareness, I think, if you're listening to this, is always just a good skill to have in general, but that really contributes to being able to stay calm and observe and realize something is happening. Because once you realize something is happening, then your brain starts to process and you can start to recall better and things register. If you're surprised and you're just caught off guard, that's when you're just standing there buffering, and your fight or flight kicks in, and you're just, when that happens and the adrenaline's going, the way you recall things completely changes. So um, situational awareness and being able to train yourself, it takes practice to observe, is the what I would really encourage if you're getting into bigfooting or any type of, like, even bird watching, right? So paying attention to what's going on, which bird watching is also one of my hobbies. Very fun, Bigfoot and bird watching. I might start a coffee table book about that. But
That sounds amazing.
but so that's the first part. And then the second part is, if you're going to submit a report, if you have an encounter and you have the ability to write it down as soon as it happens, or as immediately as you can, write it down. That's what when I had, we talked about my encounter. That's what I did. I wrote it down, right? And that way I know the exact time, around the exact time, and uh, the conditions and the date, and all these details that might get fuzzy or I might fill in later, which tends to happen if you don't write things down. You just kind of glaze over things and make them more cohesive in your brain. You're kind of defragmenting things, and the way you remember changes, and you've had different experiences that you might integrate into them without even realizing. So um, writing it down is the biggest thing you can do as soon as possible. And then when you get to the submission on the site, if you're going to put your report in, um, when you're, like, technically actually using the form, I'd say zoom in on that map as close as you can to be as accurate when you're clicking that map to get a good location in there. And then fill all the fields out. I've kind of made them as simple as possible. So I've got, height, color, gender, all of that in there, date, time. Fill those out, because that's very helpful for me, because those are standardized fields that I can really filter on and really do analysis on. It's hard to pull information out of just anecdotal paragraphs, but still, I encourage you to put that in there, because it gives me context, and I can get some behavioral information out of there, or I can understand what was going on, where you were. Maybe I can pull some other details out of there. If I'm looking at the data in a certain way, I can search for certain keywords. Like I did that with the road sightings. I looked for anything that was a trail, road, street. Uh, if people said they were in their car, I included all those sightings. So the context does matter for different ways that I'm going to slice the data. And then if you have any pictures or video, remember to attach them. I've had a few reports lately where it's like sending an email. They say, "Oh, I attached the photo," and then they didn't attach the photo, and they click submit. I was like, "All right, I got to email these people." So it's just take your time when you're submitting, and just read over it again, make sure everything's in there that you want to submit before you click submit, just like anything else. So those are it's as easy as 1, 2, 3 steps: situational awareness, writing it down, and then taking your time on the form. I got one for you. If you want to pick up the one of the topics we left before
Yes, please.
and touch on generative
I
AI.
literally have like lists of questions here because I was like, there's not going to be an order. We're just going to hop in. Yes. What are you doing with AI? Because like I know you're into I'm into it. We're all into it. Eventually it'll be into us. You know, like this has been the year of AI. So now that the data's, you know, like now that you got the data flowing, what are your plans? How are you going to use it?
So I actually just used it to do that road
Oh,
crossing analysis
hell
that I was
yeah.
talking about. I made a tool
What?
using ChatGPT. I didn't plug the data set directly into
Mhm.
it, but I did make a tool that read through all of the entire database and pulled out stats for me and also searched for keywords and really kind of it just did a textual analysis, and I kind of gave it direction on the what I was looking for and just let it run, and it read the entire database in 5 minutes,
Jesus
not even
Christ.
less, and it gave me really
Yeah.
fast, right? And it gave me results, and it was like, oh, this, and this, you know, and so I've been trying to create tools that I can use to analyze the data in a way that would take me a really long time, like rereading everything, looking for what I am, whatever particular analysis I'm trying to do. Instead, now I can just create a custom parameter and say, hey, I'm looking for anybody that's written anything down that said they were in their car, they were driving, look for car, look for driving, look for street, look for any synonyms of street, look for, you know, uh, anybody that says they were traveling or anything that remotely tangentially touches roads, um, and pull those out, and then I can do an analysis on that. And it accelerated my ability to do that analysis, and it took it from maybe a couple weeks down to really uh, an evening
Jesus.
to get that analysis done, and it was just really cool the things you can do with AI. And then on a different note, I also use AI, like I was telling you guys before the show, to make like the sticker designs. Midjourney is awesome, but seeing how easy it is to just put a prompt into Midjourney really makes me nervous for like sightings, right? Like when things pop up on the internet now, my first instinct is always going to be, is this AI? Like that's the first question I'm going to have from now forward, because it's so easy to put. If you're really good at prompts, you can make something that's crazy detailed and like photorealistic, right? So it's a double-edged sword, and I think people, have to keep that in mind. It's very powerful, but it's very easy to manipulate and easy to uh, create things so fast. Like you don't have to be a coder or a programmer anymore. You can just get really good at prompts and then plug it in and get out in 30 seconds something that looks like a real photo or is a functioning piece of software or build a website template, you name it,
Yeah.
right? There's an AI out there for it. So that's where I'm at on AI. I'm just dipping my toe in the water and trying to responsibly use it on the data set and the analysis I do.
Wow. So have you, and if not, I want to talk to you after the show about this as a future project, future plan thing. Have you looked into the correlation between Bigfoot and UFOs?
I haven't. I have really only had really one or two reports. That's about it that describe um like paranormal
Mhm.
phenomenon. Like there's some that describe orbs. There's one submitted by, I can't remember where it was. I'll pull it out for you, but it was a female witness, and she saw Bigfoot, and then she said she saw after that like 7 or 8 UFOs in the sky. So um I haven't explored that only because I don't feel like I have enough data
I got you.
to use to like it would be so few sightings that I've got and reports that it's really hard to draw a pattern out of just a handful of reports.
Yeah, I think he just disappointed Gil. He was looking for the like, "Hey, you have no idea how many sightings I've seen of UFOs and
Oh
Bigfoot
no,
together,
No.
Bigfoot
I
FOs or
I
something
don't mean
like
to
that."
disappoint you, but I was in Sedona in July
Yes.
and I did an alien UFO tour and I was like skeptical,
Mhm.
okay? Like I try to stay skeptical. Even though I'm doing the Bigfoot mapping project, I'm really trying to be walk a straight line. So I went into it, I was like, okay, I'm wearing military grade night vision goggles and I'm looking up at the sky. What am I going to see? You know, H- if you haven't done it,
I've
like
only
you get
heard.
if you get the chance, go. Like if there's people listening that are like this guy, I saw things that were going count like at right angles, different different speeds and more hundreds of things.
Yeah.
I didn't really I still don't understand what I was seeing, but there's so much going on up there that I wasn't aware of that it completely blew my mind of like the possibility of how UFOs in general or aliens or whatever you want to call them. It was just crazy the amount of stuff I saw in the sky.
Yeah.
Unreal. Unreal. There was one that came so close and they weren't planes because planes have the blinking lights and you can tell if it's a satellite and we did see whatchamacallit uh Elon's
Starlink.
Starlinks. Yeah.
Starlink, thank
Yeah.
you. Twice actually. We saw a launch and just satellites in orbit. So we had a good baseline for what satellites look like. And man, there was just stuff everywhere. And the weirdest thing was the guy that hosted the tour looked like it's pitch black and he's putting goggles on your face. And he's like, "Oh, I got to configure the goggles for you." And I'm like, "Okay." Like seems a little this guy was an interesting character. So initially I was like, he seems like he's full of Bigfoot scat, you know?
Mhm.
Nice.
Yes.
And it's gonna stick.
Yeah, I love it.
It's gonna
And
splat.
Yeah.
he puts the goggles on my like he looks in my eyes and he's like, "Oh, by the way, you have a stigmatism in your right eye?" And I was like, yeah, I actually do know that, but how do you know that?" Like you gotta go. Like if you get the chance, go to
It's a
Sedona,
free
do this
optometry
tour. It'll
appointment
blow your
and
mind.
like, free
It's just
optometrist and
bizarre. So
it's fucking awesome.
I I I guess I didn't really answer your question
It's all good.
though.
You've
I
pointed him though, instead of disappointing
what
him, you've pointed him, and now
No,
he's
so
peaked.
I have follow-ups. I was gonna say, and I'll probably edit this out or whatever, but get you my login information database,
Oh, cool.
which has a lot of data, and like so in the similar way that you mapped these, you found the Bigfoot byways, right? Um, they might not be direct like witnesses to UFOs and Bigfoot where they see them both at the same time. I mean, one completely grabs your attention on the ground, the other one completely grabs your attention in the sky. Just being honest,
Right.
you're not going to look at, I'm not going to be like, Bigfoot. Anyways, is that a, like you're going to stare at Bigfoot, and vice versa.
Well, yeah, it's not your first instinct to be, oh, it's Bigfoot. Is there a UFO? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But can overlay the data, like all
Hmm.
the sightings data, and I can get you info on the entire database.
I
Multiple
mean, at this
databases,
point,
but
though,
yeah.
it's undeniable that there are UAPs,
Yeah.
right? It's undeniable. The military and the United States government the White House has come out and published the videos and admitted they don't know what the Tic Tac, for
Yeah.
example, is a great example. That's fully a UAP.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting too. So like I was thinking about this earlier while you were kind of going through like the reporting process and everything. Um I think that we'd be a lot farther along in Bigfoot. I guess not Bigfoot disclosure, but the equivalent of that, right? Um, uh, the social acceptance of Bigfoot as like an actual living, breathing entity, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
if there was potential military like application for Bigfoot, or like some way of getting ahead, right, against the enemy or country, or making money, beyond like the individual trying to run a hoax. um UFOs guarantee that, right? Like if a
Oh,
government got it in its hand, it's like woohoo, like, and it's like holy shit, what's this next week Velcro, like it's just like, it's that's big. Bigfoot though, it's just kind of like, fuck do we do with that now?
I mean,
Like,
Gil, I want to ask if you're
what?
talking about militarizing Bigfoot.
Or you could just read
are
the
we going
script.
down
Yeah,
that
that's
road?
fine. No, but uh, I say this because a lot of the methods and stuff like that you were talking about with reporting, and then also like looking at the the anxieties people have around reporting, the reactions people have around reporting, all this, it reminds me so much of the reports that I read from like early days of UFO reporting, right? And I'm constantly reading them. I
Hmm.
sent you a audio link a while back to like that was from like
Mm-hmm.
1970 something, 1960 something or whatever. I'm always digging through the old databases of stuff, and it
Right.
reminds me so much of that. And I think um, that's just what I'm so stoked about this project. Stoked about like getting to chat with you and stuff is just you know we are in those early days, but it's for Bigfoot, and frankly because um, Bigfoot, he ain't no chump. He ain't going out here and like fighting for any flag. No, 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 no. Like he's not gonna do that. No, he's just cool. He's just cool where he's at. Although he'd make a great
Seems to
sniper.
be.
But shit. But
He's pretty accurate with his rock throwing.
just saying. I'm just saying. But
Hmm.
yeah, so with that, something that a lot of the early UFO reporting centers, or the only UFO reporting center at the time, did was they made sure that every airport, right, every tower had their phone number on hand, so that when locals would call the airport and be like, "What's that in the sky? Da 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 da. This and that and the other. Do you have anything over here?" They would be like looking at radar or whatever, and they're like, "Nope, that's not us. We don't see anything." And they're like, "Well, what?" And they're like, "Well, you can report your UFO too." And then they pass along the phone number for it. So I
It's
was
perfect.
almost
Yeah.
thinking of something like that for ranger stations around
Oh, that's ingenious.
around the
Yeah.
country.
Boom.
Like
Another genius
every
idea.
ranger station, outpost, wildfire, like observation towers, like anything like that. Even the all of the crews that are out there that like do trail cleanup, like those are central
Mm-hmm.
points where if somebody's freaking the fuck out because they think they just saw a Bigfoot, they might run to a park ranger and be like, what the hell is that? Are there bears
They
in this?
probably should run to a park
Yes.
ranger.
Run.
Honestly, yeah.
So like it's just a central point for like all those collections. So that's one thing, and that's just from again, like there's like a 50-year gap in like the development because UFO nerds got on like a hardcore data collection very early, but they also had the same
Mm-hmm.
beefs like you were talking about, other like Beefro, they try to tear apart every report, right? That was I think it was Beefro, right? Or they try to debunk,
Yeah,
or they
yeah.
try
No,
to,
you're absolutely right. And
well,
yeah, it's frustrating because I don't want to criticize the way that I think the way that they approach their uh, research is valid,
yeah,
very
yeah,
much so. They classify reports. They have investigators. They have a standard method that they go through. So I just think um, there's always you know 100 ways to skin a cat for to make a bad pun on the black cat report. I see Gil's face when I said that,
Whoa.
but there's always a different way to approach a problem, I guess is what I should say. So yeah, you're right. To have those beefs and uh kind of intimidate people, like people if they know that the investigator that's going to come visit them, whether it's from MUFON or BFRO, is going to initially be very skeptical and not believe them and try to prove them wrong from the get-go if that's the approach. And I'm not saying they're all like that. They're certainly not. I've talked to a lot of very upstanding, good, open-minded investigators. But if that's their impression, people are going to be reluctant to call them out to their home or wherever they are
Yeah.
to be interviewed.
Well, this is almost identical to the same debates and beefs, and like the different takes on how the subject should be approached that was happening in the mid 60s up to like into the 80s between like different UFO organizations, right? Like some of them took the method of just like taking down everything, even like like the phone center, where it's just like even if they knew that the person on the other line was unhinged, they still in their mind they were like, well, maybe this broke their perception of reality at this point. Like maybe that's why they sound like this, you know.
Mhm.
And even if it sounded like this, they still took it down. They still tried to be as non-emotional in like the actual
Hmm.
process and just be very like, okay, and then what happened? Okay, and then what happened? And they would just be like, all right, is it all right if we follow up with you? Yeah, okay, well, thank you. Like, and just
Hmm.
even if it was some crazy shit where it's just like, oh shit, that's nuts, like here's a police
Well,
dispatch
yeah.
recording for 45 minutes, but the ones that won out, the ones that took down all the fucking data, that's what I want to get at here. Um, yeah, I don't know. I I love it. I love it.
I think while we're still talking about
Yeah.
interviewing people, I think it's important to keep in mind in when you're talking to different people, there's different levels of communication.
Mhm.
There's different ways that people communicate. Some people are strong, they might make you a drawing of what they saw, but they couldn't
Yeah.
articulate what happened, right? Or vice versa. Somebody can tell you and describe to you very well what they saw and recollect things, but if you ask them to draw it for you, you get a stick figure. So I think, to your point, like you're saying, when you're interviewing people, you need to keep in mind that they're coming to you with information that they think they need to share, and they're going to give it to you the best way that they can. And capturing that is important because that one report might be the link between two others that start to build the chain of, a trend. And if you ignore what people are trying to tell you, in my opinion, you're not really um, unbiased. If you decide just because somebody cannot communicate in the way you want them to, that their information is invalid, I think I listen to a lot of like cold case podcasts, right? And oftentimes you hear them go back, and it's the one person that's been trying to tell them the same thing for 30 years, and they just ignored them. That was the key to the whole case, right? And that could be the case with Bigfoot. It could be the case with UAPs. It could be the case with missing people. It could be the case with a ton of things, right? So I think it's important. That's kind of why I like the crowdsourcing approach. It
Mhm.
keeps me out of it in a way. It's a good buffer for me just to get information from, and I guide, like I do guide people with what I want, but I don't tell them or make a when they're answering a certain way, I don't make a facial expression that makes them change their answer, or there's no influence I have on what they're telling me other than the way they interact with the form. And I think that's really important to have a successful study, because then you can look you even have an analysis of, all right, this is a good report, this is a bad report, this is what I like to look at, this is what tells me the most, like you were asking about before, and this is just a location. But at the end of the day, if you're not looking at the full context of everyone who thinks they've had an encounter, in my opinion, you're not really doing a full study. You're doing a curated study, and you're cherry picking what you want to have in the data set. And without without bad data, what do you know how do you know what good data is? You just have inserting your bias into the study, essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
100%.
Boom. And that's why you're on interview number 3. Dropping the realness.
It ain't no Bigfoot scat.
Yeah.
Bigfoot scat.
Bigfoot is just my best friend.
Let's see what else. I have a bunch of questions here, but I just love chatting. We all just love chatting.
I made Gil speechless.
You
Is
make
this a
me
You
first?
did. You dropped
Damn near
them.
impossible.
Speechless.
You kind of led me into. You always ask me what's new, and you made me just. I don't know if I want to put this out there. I don't know. Maybe I can ask for your advice and your listeners' advice. Maybe I could leverage your audience. I've been thinking about putting my own podcast together
Fuck
now that
yeah.
I've done. I enjoy
Yeah.
this a lot. And I think I've been marinating on the idea of doing a podcast about Bigfoot research, but I've got a certain angle on it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to put it all out there right now because I
Please don't.
want it to be a
Yeah.
surprise. But I'll just drop that seed here, so when people listen to this, now they can peer pressure me about actually pulling the trigger on doing a podcast of my own. But which maybe I can have you guys as guests, and that I can turn the
I'm busy
tables
that
here.
day. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know.
I'll do it. I'll be there.
Okay, there goes the four. Interview 4? I don't know.
Oh, dang. He's
But
leveraging
yeah,
on
so
us.
but yeah, so I've been toying with that, and then if we're talking about other new stuff, I have
Please,
2 more
please,
things
yeah,
that
yeah.
are kind of
All the
exciting.
We're
updates.
ready.
I'm actually writing a children's book about a young Bigfoot who goes on adventures. I'm dedicating it to my son.
Aw,
Yes.
That's
And
amazing.
I've got 20 pages of it written, and they are fully rhyming. So
I love it.
just be ready.
I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
I don't have a kid or anything, but I'm gonna buy it just because.
Oh,
It's gonna
I
be awesome.
will.
Carolyn Marie and Jake.
When I get a
Oh, yeah.
polished draft, I'll send it to you guys.
We'll send it to
Aw.
our friends
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
have kids too.
Yeah. They're about to have
And
a
then
baba.
coming back around to the newest and coolest thing I think that I've done recently is the John. I talked about it. I briefly
Mhm.
mentioned it earlier, but the John Green database that I recently put on the map.
Yeah. So tell us about John
To my
Green.
knowledge, I don't think anybody else has done
Yeah.
that. So I'm very excited to have made that announcement just the other day. And you're the first people that I'm actually talking about it with, which
Heck
is
yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting because I don't think I would have been able to do it had I not been a map person. The database I found that somebody else put into Access, Microsoft Access, and put out on Reddit of all places. I found the link. I'm always looking for data, by the way. I will find it. I will find it. But so I took that and massaged it quite a bit. They did a very good job. But what I noticed was that the lat longs were not in like a standard format. So if you just took those columns as they are, they would plot completely incorrectly. So you have to have like an eye for valid coordinate data.
Mhm.
And after staring at it for literally staring at it for 8 hours, because it was there, I knew the information was there. It just took like 8 hours and maybe a beer or two. And finally, I realized that it was just shorthand, and all I needed to do was put the decimal place in the right place in the lat longs, and boom, they're very general, but the locations, once I did that and realized that I needed to put them in the right hemisphere, just by adding a negative symbol in front of one of them, perfect. They hit the map, they lined up with North America, and boom. It was just a matter of like that having a moment of like an epiphany of what I needed to do, and boom, I felt like I'm in a way paying respects to somebody who pioneered the idea of a Bigfoot database. So it's my way of doing something and publishing something, and paying respects to John Green by making his database accessible to the current community in an easy way, via the map, because not everybody digs through databases, right? Not everybody finds that to be fun. But looking at and clicking and reading at a map, I hope can be fun, right? Or at least easier. So I really think that I hope people share the opinion that I'm doing right by John Green by putting that out there in such a
Well,
way.
would you mind telling us a little bit, or at least what you know about John Green? Because I'm clueless on it.
Yeah,
Or I'm
introduce
clueless
them
on
to
him.
the
Yeah, like what?
to people.
So I won't give you the full bio because I'm new to the community, and
Well,
um,
why are you excited about you didn't just get some anonymous data across the internet. You're like, oh, this is John Green's data. So like, well, how did
yeah.
that hit? Why did that hit? What does he mean to you?
s- Well, when I started the project, a lot of people asked me, "Oh, have you seen John Green's
Mm,
database?" And at first, at first when I started the project, I didn't even know really who John Green was, right? And I'll admit that I don't read every book about. I haven't read every book about Bigfoot, and I haven't found all the material about Bigfoot that's out there yet. This is a journey for me as well, just as much as anybody else, right?
mhm.
Um, so I felt kind of, I don't want to say guilty, but I felt like I hadn't done enough research. So while to educate myself, I went and looked at what John Green had done for the community, and he was a reporter he was
Mhm.
Canadian, and he was born. God, when he was born, I'll tell you what. I'll read what I wrote about him. Let me pull it
Yeah,
up
please, man.
because I did my research and I wrote hopefully a very nice summary about John Green. Um, he wrote a bunch of books too, like really interesting books, but he was born in 1927 and he died in 2016. And he was a reporter, right?
Damn.
Who interviewed people and captured their sightings and their names, like I was saying earlier, witnesses, their gender, their age, all kinds of stuff he captured about their sightings. And he was commonly referred to as Mr. Sasquatch, right? Because he's um, captured at this point. I think the database I found had like 6,000 sightings in it,
Wow.
basically the same size as everything else that I'd already found in the project. He really put his life focus into this database
Yeah.
and really was adamant that Bigfoot is out there, right? So one of the biggest things that he did was his analysis and study of the Bluff Creek footprints.
Hmm.
So that really put Bigfoot on the map, so to say. And he just did so much for the field by publishing. One of the books was On the Track of Bigfoot, and let me make sure I'm quoting this right. I don't want to disrespect him, but on the track of Sasquatch. Sasquatch, the Apes Among Us is another book he wrote, and Year of the Sasquatch as well is another book. So he wrote a lot of material about Bigfoot, and studied a lot of the casts and captured all of the reports. And I think in spirit of what he did and was trying to accomplish, I'm trying to, like, I didn't even know who he was, and he was the guy that pioneered kind of the idea of creating a database. So I think I felt obligated in a way, out of respect, to put his data out there because, and hopefully pick up the torch. Because I didn't even realize who he was when I started, and now I see that he was really the guy that came up with this idea of creating and managing this database and using data to find Bigfoot. So I should have known who he was because I'm basically, hopefully, doing something similar that he did.
Hmm.
So
Oh
I
yeah.
hope that answers who he was for you in a way. Like, um, I just picked up his book, so I can tell you more hopefully soon when I finish it.
Nice. And I mean, you know, of course you don't know everything about Bigfoot, or else you wouldn't be collecting data on Bigfoot. So like that's
It's
okay.
funny.
Like people
People
that are
people ask me,
Bigfoot experts, it's like, really? How many have you done autopsies on? Like I don't you know, like
well, yeah, you're
honestly,
right,
it's just like
but
nobody technically is. There's folks that love it.
there's just people that they're like, "Do you know so and so? Do you know so and so? Have you read this book?" I'm like, No, no, I haven't. I will now that you've." But it's weird. It's
Yeah.
like the name game, you know. And
Hmm.
so, oh, you must not be, you don't know this guy. You're just not really doing research. Then it's kind of frustrating sometimes because I'm new. I haven't been doing this for, well, I guess now for 3 years, but there's people that are like 20, 25 years into the game, and they're like, so and so, have you heard of this sighting? And I'm like, no, no, but tell me about it,
Yeah.
and I want to learn. So
Yeah.
Mm.
So
try to stay positive.
hell yeah.
For sure.
I mean, like, yeah, everybody's been there at some point, and like, if somebody loves a subject and then they're judging somebody for not knowing an area of the subject,
Most everyone is very
yeah, I mean, like,
yeah, most everyone's
who the
supportive
fuck
though.
doesn't get
I will
excited
say
about
that.
talking about shit that they like? Come on, man. You know, like, doesn't matter
Right?
what it is.
Yeah.
You like it, it's like, oh well, let me tell you. Like, yeah, like,
Mhm.
hell yeah. All right, so flipping it back though, real quick, thinking about AI again. At what point, if there is a point, do you think these reports could be used and all this data that's coming in could be used, including the data that you've brought in from external sources, right? Like combining that data together with AI for predictive modeling.
I don't know that we even really need AI to do that. We
Oh,
can do
sure.
that
Okay.
via a lot of different algorithms and models that we've got now. I guess if people who aren't like
Mm-hmm.
GIS or data professionals, it will open the ability up to them to do that if they're not, like I said earlier, if you're not a coder or a programmer. So I think what AI will contribute is that it will make the ability to do those types of analysis more attainable and accessible for people. So it won't be such a narrow portion of the community who have the skill set to do that type of analysis. Now you can have the idea and describe it and work through it with AI. So I think that's what it will contribute, because we do have the ability to make predictive
I
models
mean,
and
for Bigfoot
things like that
specifically,
now.
like Bigfoot
Oh, for
specifically,
Bigfoot
like,
specific.
taking together, and you can, using the algorithms and whatever, but looking at the trends and being like, hey, this is going to be a hot spot this summer, or this is going to be a hot spot this fall, based off of this and this and this and that, tying it all together, so that, expeditions, right? Research, say even just like canvassing and getting your name out, can be focused on an area where it's like, well, this is what the models are literally pointing towards. It looks like there's been a slow migration of reports going west to this area, and they generally happen this time of year. Um, could that be done with the data that you've collected so far?
I think yes. Of course, I'll always say more data will make it more
Yeah.
accurate, and precise. But generally, yes, I think we could do that. If you add John Green's data into the mix, I think we could do some even more bigger models at a larger scale. His data is not extremely locationally, it's not precise. It's very general. So I wouldn't suggest using that data in a manner to be surgical,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
It's not going to be
I
like,
would say on um, trends over large areas, absolutely we can start to identify, and then from there drill down, because we've got at now in the database there's probably 15,000 sightings, 14, 15,000 total, and that's a lot of data.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
um, there's, I think, yes, to answer your question, we could accelerate our ability to do that and enhance it and supplement what what would take people a long time to get through or even think about doing. Right? Like you can plug in AI and say, just give me some statistical analysis on this and tell me, is there a cluster somewhere? What do the clusters look like? These are the parameters on the cluster I want to see. Um, Tell me the time and date of each sighting. What's the average latitude? What's the average like what's going on
yeah.
here? Um, and all you have to do is ask the question, and the AI can come back 30 seconds later with your answer. And to do that analysis otherwise would take hours possibly, right? Or days. So
Mhm.
Mm. So are you
I think that's going to be the biggest benefit is the speed and accessibility that AI is going to lend to anybody who wants to do research that has access to the data, right?
yeah. Hmm. So is there a
Well,
plan
now
to
that the
add?
data's
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead, Jay.
now that the data is being done, it's like it just makes your job easier to do the analysis, of
It
seeing.
does.
Yeah, so then now you can focus on other things, which is kind of a cool thing about what's going on with AI is like it's allowing you to get more time to do other things to get to these levels of better analysis.
Absolutely. A good example of that is the analysis. As soon as I got the John Green database into a format that I could work with, I I immediately pointed AI, uh, the AI bot, if you will, at it and just asked it questions. And I put up some slides that I'll just read you some examples of what I asked it and what I was able to pull out of it. But like general statistics, like obviously number of records, the top states for the John Green sightings, the most sightings, what county the most sightings are reported in, the years that most sightings were reported in, the seasons, and the day or night. And surprisingly, there were more sightings during the day, barely,
Hmm.
than in at night in John Green's database, which I thought was very interesting. Um, just and then I went into more detail about seasonal and day versus night, and then just a timeline of where did Bigfoot sightings start and what decades or times were there the most, and what did his database just what years did his database span, all types of things, and then geographic hotspots. Also, I was able to pull out, and I pulled all that information out. I mean, in a half hour, right?
Yeah.
And just by asking questions, like almost conversationally. It was really kind of a fun exercise.
Bigfoot's gonna have to up its hiding game real fucking soon. I'm just saying. It's gonna be going
AI
to.
is gonna get you, Bigfoot.
I think the next place we could find Bigfoot is the public library, going to a code academy like lesson. Just being like, gotta fight AI now. God damn it.
It's gonna trick
Right.
AI.
First satellites, now this. I'm getting too old for this.
There's just so many.
This
Anything
Bigfoot
you
scat.
think you, yeah, yeah, anything you want to do
Yeah.
with, uh, like analyzing, like you just touched on it, analyzing aerial photos. So you can do that with AI now. You can, I mean, you name it. Machine learning and AI,
Yeah.
they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can really do a lot. It's crazy.
I'm just excited to see about what it does for our community, which I feel like is always like the generally like, the Bigfoot, paranormal, cryptids, UFO up until fairly recently, the most underfunded like communities possible. And so
Tell me about
in
it. People ask me, they're like, "Oh, you have an app out there. You must be, that app." I'm like, this is a passion project.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. This
my paper towels are
is quite
bounty.
funny.
I mean, I'm not gonna brag, but like yeah.
Yeah.
But like, this community is always like, I feel like so behind in adapting a lot of technologies, like just the paranormal, like I said, paranormal, cryptid, UFO, yada yada, like generally very behind in adapting like up and coming technologies, right? And I feel like AI is changing it. I know on our end, something that I've been doing is going back to a lot of those old UFO reports, like audio reports, and through manually editing, but also running through and cleaning it up with AI, right? And breathing life into them. Something that I do have in like the lineup here soon is like Barney Hill, the first Betty and Barney Hill, very famous case. I got his hypnosis tapes, and like the
Oh,
original ones,
wow.
they're fucking horrifying. They were already horrifying, but like when they're crystal clear, they're super fucking horrifying. Very
Wow.
intense. But that was just running it,
I can't wait till you publish that.
dude. I can send you the file early, honestly. Like I've got it. The first
Yes.
one, it's 8 minutes and you're gonna have like chills down your spine. It's a grown ass man who's a veteran who's like freaking the fuck out, screaming and crying, and it's just like,
Wow. I can't wait to
yeah.
listen to that.
But like, yeah, like using AI
Mhm.
for that. But I'm also, I guess my mind always goes towards like the predictive edge, like, or the like modeling edge, um, because again, like Bigfoot is not just a history of reports, just like UFOs are not a history of reports, right? They are, at least in my mind, an active everyday presence in some existence, whether the people that I'm able to communicate with to see them or not, whether it's other humans that talk about it, see them during the day, doesn't matter, you know. Um, Bigfoot is not the tree falling in the forest when no one's around, right? Um, and
Mm-hmm.
just like you popped on some night vision goggles and you were seeing things make a right angle turn in the sky. um at least on my side, like I see it as like, yeah, UFOs are up there all the fucking time. you know like eh, you know um so when we're going back and we're looking at these reports, we shouldn't just treat them as like cases of like, wow, that was nuts back in the day. No, they need to be approached as, um, how can we use this to inform us to learn going forward, right? Again, like trail cams are often set up in the laziest, the most easy to access, probably a baited location, to like to for deer and for elk and for moose and da 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 da. But using predictive modeling or like predictive AI, could they be concentrated on an area intentionally that might not be that easy to get to, but you have a damn good reason because there's 60 years of things that are all
Absolutely.
pointing their arrows to like one spot, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Waxing poetic over here. But that's just my thought. That's just my thought though around this take with it. And so I really need to know, when are you putting AI into the app? So that people could just start
Oh,
popping
that's
up
a good question.
questions and
So
just
that's actually just recently become very possible
Mhm.
because ChatGPT released where you can make your own GPT and you can train it on your own data. So yeah, if you haven't looked at it recently, OpenAI just released. They probably put a bunch of companies out of business, but
Mhm.
by doing it, you can create your own GPT focused tool now and train it on, you name it, PDFs, uh, CSV data, Word docs. You plug your data into it and train it on your data, and then it can answer questions about what's in your database. So that's actually very possible. I don't know if it'll be in the app, but it's probably gonna it could hit the website fairly soon. My concern is just making sure that it's accurate because GPT still can make mistakes. So I don't want to throw a tool out there that could be wrong, right? So for example, I posted about it. I looked up like the Bigfoot mapping project. If you ask ChatGPT about it, it'll tell you about the Bigfoot mapping project. But I asked just to see how valid it was. I was like, who is the founder of the Bigfoot mapping project? And it was like Cliff Barrickman is the founder of the Bigfoot mapping project. And I was like, no, he's not. I am. Scott Tompkins is the founder, and they were like, no, Scott Tompkins is not. And I was like, no, he is. And like I was arguing with
and it's
ChatGPT,
like, well, then
and it was
send us
like
a photo
later
of your
on,
driver's
it
license.
corrected
And you're like,
itself.
no.
Yeah, yeah, it
Give us
corrected
your
itself, and it was
swim.
like, oh, sorry, that was an error. Scott Tompkins is the founder of the Bigfoot Mapping Project. And then like I went further down the conversation I was having with it, and I was like, so say again, who founded the Bigfoot Mapping Project? And they're like, Cliff Barrickman. And
What the
I was like, that's Bigfoot scat.
Do you think
Like, come on.
do you think that Cliff Barrickman went in there and continuously typed in Cliff Barrickman is the founder of Bigfoot Mapping Project just to
You know, if he did, he maybe deserves it because that would take a lot of effort,
yeah.
you know?
Well, I mean
But I
technically
just thought it was funny because I could tell that it was scouring the internet for a lot of Bigfoot related material, and there must have been enough overlap
Yeah.
for it to get confused. And that's where I think AI is very powerful, but it's also not 100% reliable. And I think it's important to remember that when you're getting an answer out of AI, um, particularly when you're asking like conversational questions and you're just asking it to tell you answers, you got to remember it's doing its best, but it doesn't know the truth. It just knows what it finds and how it infers things from the internet. So, and it's only time stamped up until I think like April might be the last timestamp that it made it up to. So,
Yeah.
But
I
that's
mean, I personally don't really like to call it AI because it technically really isn't AI. It's not
no,
like an artificial intelligence. I like to call it AAT, like artificial analytical tool, because literally that's what you're using it for. And AI is just kind of a, I guess it's a clever misnomer that it was just
yeah,
given to it because it's so fast. It's so
it's a
fast.
conversational model,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
mean, that's basically what it is.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're absolutely no, you're it's closer to machine learning than AI,
Mhm.
realistically. Um, but I just want to put that out there that like, yeah, it's a great tool, but you have to be vigilant
Yeah.
and aware of how you're using it because you can't just put can't put all your eggs in one basket with what it's telling you because I mean, it's wrong about stuff that's easy to get right. So,
Mhm.
um, just put that little disclaimer out there.
Well, I mean, that's always been true with data, though. Like, data is only as good as the questions you ask it. At least that's how I approach like data. Is like it's only going to help you if you know how to ask the right questions, right? And one of your first steps, which like you were talking about earlier, when see Bigfoot stuff going across the news and stuff, one of your reactions is to go in and start looking for bullshit, right? One of your first questions is, how do I figure out if this is real? Or using the means that I have like as a quick option, right? So like Google image search and da da da, and like digging into it. It's the same with data. You get a huge set of data and you're like, okay, well, A, what do I want for it? And like B, how do I find the BS like in this data? Then once you get that done,
Or even just the source,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
Getting to the source of something is, I mean, it's probably, I'm being very obvious saying this, but getting to the source of something is where you should start.
Yeah.
Shouldn't start with what people are telling you.
Mhm.
Start with the
Yeah.
source, you know?
Yeah. The amount of times, honestly, like just on this show or for this show, like researching, I find the same fucking stories being repeated in a giant reference loop on the internet, and they're wrong.
Yeah.
Like they're 100% wrong. Yeah, I'm just like, this
Yeah.
isn't right at all. Like, what the fuck?
Well, most people just read headlines, and they repeat that. I'm guilty of it. We've all probably done it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess
For sure.
I don't know. Trying to bring that's where the report part comes in on the show. The report part comes in because journalistic integrity. God damn it! Like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
If you're going to say something, that I would hope that you've, done your due diligence, and I know you guys have. You in a general sense.
You out there.
Yeah, you out there. If you're going to say something, I hope you do your due diligence because it's just, it's a crazy world. The internet shouldn't be trusted.
but like the irony.
I'm an older millennial. I can say that. I was around before the internet got popular. So
Does
Me too.
anybody else notice though that like the same folks that when we were growing up were like, I can't trust everything you read and can't believe everything you read, like will hop on like YouTube and just believe everything that they come across on it. Just like,
Mhm.
what the hell?
Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, they're not reading it; they're listening to it. So I guess it's a little different.
Damn.
There's a reason they call it programming.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. But I want to ask, and how do people like? What are the top, like, let's say like 3 ways that folks out there listening to this can support the Bigfoot mapping project? And I'm gonna name 3 ideas that I've had. Right, which like I forgot
Go
that
for
in
it.
our interviews we generally just like we're like, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, like, but I got 3 written out here. So, one of them obviously being like sharing it on social media, right? Or with a friend. The link will obviously be in the show notes. guerrilla marketing, pun intended, like hitting up a subreddit they're on, asking folks specifically when they're coming across, like when you're on the internet and you're finding folks who are reporting their sightings, right? Because this is happening all the time. Um, Commenting and just simply saying like, hey, you should submit it here if you haven't already, right?
That's a big one.
Super
Yeah.
easy. Literally, it's copy and
Mhm.
paste. Super, super easy to do something like that. And like, I know at least for me, like Reddit posts from like 2012, I still find constantly, and I go back and I read, and then I find awesome new references and stuff. You know, you found data like through
Mhm.
Reddit posts. So even if the person already has or may have already done it, 5 years from now, somebody might come across that when they're looking for where to submit their Bigfoot sighting to, and then boom,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
If
yeah.
anything, it's a nice backlink for the website's SEO. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, there's like that option, right? So doing that, what else? Like, and then obviously like financial. It's the holiday season. Come on, who the fuck doesn't like Bigfoot? I'm just saying, like,
Touche.
and if they don't like Bigfoot, take whatever money they give you for the holidays and buy yourself some nice shit. That's all I'm gonna say. So like head on over to the website. We all got the merch. We all fucking love the merch.
Them baseball
Good.
tees are
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. The
Good.
amount of times Joey and I like, like run into each other or hanging out and we're literally both wearing Bigfoot mapping project like shirts.
I need
It's
to
been
send
too
you more because
much.
I know if you wash them, I know if you wash them a lot, they get, the lettering sometimes gets a little worn
Mhm.
out. So I've had a few people that wear them frequently, and they're like, "It's my favorite shirt," and I'm like, "Oh, I can tell."
Yeah.
I gotta get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are my ideas. Like sharing it on social media, sharing it with friends, family, whatever. Um, Guerrilla marketing, whether that's digital, in person, whatever the fuck and hey, legally, Scott is not responsible for you making the decision to go online, go to Sticker Mule. They often have deals. Print off your own stickers with QR codes, taking it to the website, and going up to every single light post in a parking lot at your local national forest or park, and just making sure that folks see it when they're getting back in their car the next morning and the shit was scared out of them. So like, yeah, legally, we're not responsible if you decided to do that. I'm just saying you're not.
That's
You know,
funny.
am I
Yeah,
responsible for somebody
I
looking
don't
up
want to encourage
recipes?
any graffiti or anything like that. Nothing illegal.
Yeah, nothing illegal. Yeah, we do want to encourage financial crimes though, but that's a different episode.
Speak for yourself. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so those are my three. It's like, yeah, what do you need? What would you like? How can folks help you help the project, or help you help the project like succeed going forward?
One of the things that I think would really help the project succeed
Mhm.
would be if people submitted some of their ideas. Because I generally the posts I make, if I can't think of something that I think will be a quality post or analysis, I don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't post just to have content out there. I only put stuff out there if I think it's going to be
Mhm.
interesting and informative. So if there's something like you did, Gil, when you brought up the hurricanes and fires and natural disasters, ideas like that, where I could look at things from a different angle that I might not have thought about, that is very welcome because I can't possibly think of everything, or different ways to analyze data because I am a GIS person and I do a lot of work with data, but there are other professionals out there who are perhaps listening to this who are more in tune with different ways to analyze conservation data or wildlife analysis or different ways to get information into the data set, different tools. There's been a few people that have sent me tools that I'm very grateful for because I didn't know they existed. So things like that, if there's tools that they can send my way, or a different type of analysis or something they do that has brought them success, they could share that. That would be great. That way I can integrate and learn to use that in the project, which is a big part of what I'm trying to do. Another way that they could help us succeed is to, if they are active in the Bigfoot community or the conversation comes up, I think um, you also touched on this earlier, Gil, where it's very easy for people to be naysayers. And if they hear that, maybe just point them to the website and just say, hey, go take a look. This might change your mind. Um, so that's kind of guerrilla marketing. But the only other thing, and the third one would be like if you know an eccentric billionaire who's, who is really, really trying to find Bigfoot and just needs somewhere to funnel for, make donations for a good tax write-off, just send them my way. That would be the but on a serious note, I think it's just, be like you said, share, interact, reach out. I'll do my best to get back to you. There's a lot of different channels to check, like Facebook Messenger, Instagram, email. I even get customer support emails from the app. I have like 3 different Bigfoot emails, to check. So there's just a lot of different ways for people to get in touch. If you're gonna reach out with a very serious comment or suggestion, just email me is the best way. It's scott@bigfootmap.com. Um, I think I'd prefer to have serious discussions through email. It's a bit easier, and I can kind of track it better that way. But really, I think that's it. And then just be just genuinely, listen to the podcast I'm on, support the Black Cat Report. Just That's probably one of the biggest ways. You guys are probably one of my biggest supporters, truthfully.
Aw.
I'm very grateful for that. So I'm happy to be back.
Thank you, man.
Hell yeah, we're
But
happy to
yeah,
have you back.
it's very simple things, How would you support your friends if they were doing something that you believed in?
Yep, agreed.
Okay, so fuck yeah to all of that. Links will be in show notes with like these points. I was taking notes. Can folks submit sightings that they come across from a long time ago? So like say other folks are
Absolutely.
like, researchers, or they come across some research, can they be like, holy shit, like this is something in this old book that I found and yada yada yada, and it says this, or grandpa's diary or something. Are folks able to submit for other
Absolutely.
folks?
I would love that.
Okay, well,
Yes, please.
there you
Yeah,
there you
I
all
mean,
go.
I mean, you were saying earlier, I'm echoing a lot of the things you're saying, Gil. You're very wise. But
Thank
Don't
you.
you
don't
were
tell him
saying
that.
there's
Don't tell
a
him that.
fourth dimension to this, and that's time. So right, there's still patterns. Just because it might not be a modern report, there's still patterns to infer and details that might be interesting. So
Mhm.
absolutely, I think they should, if
Hell
they
yeah.
come across information like that, get it into the database. I really hope they do.
So, your grandma's sighting that you just learned about from your parents on Christmas when you're listening to this, right? You can you can submit that, you know. Um it can be that family lore. It can be those stories from around town. You can do that, right? Um
Mhm.
Absolutely.
hell yeah. I mean, honestly, that like opens things up so much, frankly, where it's like if somebody is, you got a puppers in the background, I can see the reflection.
Yeah.
But I don't know if y'all heard Data like crying downstairs. You didn't? Okay, good.
Uh-uh.
He was going off
No.
the door to
No.
the
You don't hear her. My dog's click clacking on the wood
not
floor.
at all.
No.
Good
Um,
mics,
Oh,
love them.
good. Okay.
but yeah, so if you are in a situation where like, like Joey brought up earlier, like you work for the government or some sort of job where like your reputation needs to be very guarded. Let's put it that way, right? Or just in your day-to-day life, you need to guard that, even for your own sanity. Have somebody else submit it for you.
Yeah.
Like honestly, or volunteer to
Have a
be that
proxy.
person. Yeah, have a proxy.
Be a Bigfoot proxy.
Bigfoot proxy.
I feel like you could use that for your Senate run too, Scott.
It's true. It's time to bring.
I
It's
don't know.
time
We'll
to
see
bring
about that Senate.
Bigfoot.
I've got to come up with a good slogan.
It's time to bring Bigfoot to bureaucracy.
Oh,
Yes. I mean, wow.
Yeah, got
We got
It's
there.
getting deep in here,
We
Gil.
got there.
got to drain
We
the
got
swamp
there.
for Bigfoot to get through. Okay, I'm done.
Yes.
Any other points or anything you want to bring up, man? Joey, any questions you got? Like, what is everybody? Yeah.
I think we've done pretty well tonight. I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
I do have one thing to say,
Please.
as always, is thank you for having me and being so supportive. You guys are great. I always have a lot of fun. I laugh a lot when we're on these interviews. I mean, it's not just like a dry, you know, discussion on like, oh, data. How, that could be a really dry discussion, and it's fun for people that are interested in it. But I always have fun going down the rabbit trails that we get on, and it's always a good time. So I definitely want to make sure to say thank you.
Mm.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means a lot to have you on. It means as much the third time as it did the first time. Back when you
Good.
were in the top 10 episodes, you number 8.
Hey,
Like
I'll
Yeah.
take
you were
it.
one of our first guests.
Hopefully, I don't wear out my welcome. I'd love to come back for a fourth time.
No, definitely not. Yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us, for coming on.
Mhm.
Within days of your baby being born, literally the night before Thanksgiving. Like thank you so much, and seriously, thank you so much for what you're doing with the Bigfoot mapping
Mhm.
project. Like,
It
It's
is
it's a big
truly
thing.
my pleasure,
fucking
and
love
I
it.
I hope it's a good contribution to the community.
Mhm.
The day it stops being fun is the day I'll stop doing it. So. That ain't no Bigfoot scat.